Welcome to the Living Word Podcast. I am your host, Geneviève, and these episodes serve as a reminder to how essential your fullest expression is on this planet during one of the most transformative times in our history. Together, we are going to explore truth through vulnerable conversations about life's deeper meaning, exploring holistic wellness, mindset, spirituality, entrepreneurship, love, and everything in between. Let's dive in, shall we? Welcome back to the Living Word, and that is exactly what we're doing here. We are bringing words to life with true stories, and we're peeling back the curtain of Oz to the real juice of life. And the guest that's on here today brings a big smile to my face because this is a very special moment for me. Manuela is someone I've known for a very long time, and she is a pioneer in the world of holistic wellness. And she is someone I met through my father. And I've shared lots about my father on this podcast, my greatest mentor and teacher in this space. And Manuela was someone that not only did my dad look up to as an inspiration, but also myself. Now, this woman, you are going to hear from her today and her story. She is real. She is raw. There is no sugarcoating any part of her. And that's what I love so much about you, Manuela. Not only did she live in Germany for over 20 years before immigrating to Canada, but she's also lived in Egypt while traveling the world by foot, by plane, by motorcycle. She does it all. But the professional side of her that I just am so excited to dive into even more is she's a doctor of medical health science. And I probably said that wrong, but she's run an alternative and integrative health clinic for 20 years, over 20 years. And what I love about Manuela and what you do is that you don't just preach, you lead by example. Everything that you teach your clients, I've had many sessions with you for live blood analysis and so on. You have all the tinctures and things in the back. Your clinic is amazing, but life to you is fluid. You believe that being in the flow of things is really where the real juice is found. And I have watched you retransform yourself over and over and over again. And you always say that that is where the excitement comes, because when we are stagnant, we get sick. That's when we're angry and we're stressed. And you've had your own few health challenges over the past years where you really dove into the truth of what I just said. And one of the things that we'll dive into today is that 7 years ago, you had breast cancer and they told you that you would not make it without surgery. And you very nicely declined that story and you started your own healing journey. And so we'll dive into that in a moment, because one of the things you share with people is that being in tune with your body and knowing the signs is one of the most empowering places to be. And that is a statement that rings true through every fiber of my being. And one of my missions in this life is to give people permission to allow their being, their body, to be their greatest teacher. So Manuela, let's get this going. I would love for you to introduce yourself and maybe just start with, what are you most excited about right now?
Well, thank you, Jen, to have me on this podcast. I'm so excited to be here and share my story and inspire other people. You know, life is never easy, right? But we can make it easy if we are staying in the flow. You know, nobody likes to suffer and nobody likes to get stuck. But in life, whether with partners, whether with illnesses, whether with bosses, or even if you run your own company, we have things happen, you know, and in these moments, it's actually where either we break, you know, or we are going to roll through it with a fluidity kind of, right? And people who have gotten the ability, and people who have had their challenges and overcome them in the fluidity basically, they're making it much further in life, and it's actually much simpler, because the moment we get stuck, we get into a hole, and that hole gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And even people who are fluid, they temporarily get stuck, you know, but it always depends how fast can we get unstuck. And it's not just getting unstuck, but unstuck in the real way, in the way that we are actually living our truth, in the way that we are listening to our own inner voices. And I'm talking about, we all have two voices in our heads, you know, but to identify our true intuition, to identify. Hopefully people reach at one point in their lives their own spiritual practice and their spiritual journey, whether we call it God, whether we call it universe's forces. There are many, many names for that. But there is a higher power somewhere that gives us that wisdom and that intuition that will actually catapult us forward in order to make the proper right decisions for ourselves. So I'm excited
I
to
love that.
really, really, really help people as I've helped myself over the, oh my God, over 60 decades now, to continuously not give up, to always get back up and say, okay, it's not going to be this way. And I'm all about natural. I'm all about nature. I'm all about not necessarily, changing things with medication or something. The medical practice absolutely has its place, but in 99% or maybe 95% of the situations, we can heal ourselves if we get the tools right, if we know what to do, if there are many alternative and complementary things, but it all starts with our positivity, with our, do we have what it takes? Because a lot of people, they say what they have what it takes, but they actually don't, because they are low vibration. We have to have a positive outlook on life, and sometimes we have to kind of declare war within ourselves or with the stuff that happens around ourselves, to say, okay, enough is enough. Where are our boundaries? To establish maybe new and better boundaries and that align more with our own ethics and morals, so we can not just serve ourselves, but serve the world, So that's what I'm all about. The raw truth, and the
Mm,
truth will set you free.
I love that. I know that you are. I see it even in this like rebranding that you've had for your own business. Like when we were talking right before we started recording, I said I looked at your new website that's coming out, and it ran chills through my being because I've always known you as the woman who doesn't give a flippin' F what anyone thinks. And then I saw this new website and it was the essence of you, this Egyptian goddess, badass motorcycle, like all of the essence of who you are just fully coming out to the world. And you said something, Manuela, just now. You said people often say they have what it takes, but do they really? And I think that that's a really big question. We've seen it even when we went through the process with my dad and his health journey. And, when we can really get it like that into that deep hole that you talked about. And it's very easy to go there because when we are in a state of shock or a state of being the victim, we're feeling hopeless. And it's like we're looking outside of ourselves for that comfort, for that knowledge, for that knowing. And it can get really easy to get into that hole. And that's why it's so important for people to have access to resources and people like you who have been there and done it before. Because like you always say, it's not going to be easy, but it's so rewarding. And so that's one of the things that I'd love to dive into today is your own cancer journey is something that I have talked about to people often. It's something that your story is one that stays in the back of my mind, even during my own healing journey, because you are proof that it works. And you did a very unconventional journey. And I remember sitting at your place. By the way, Manuela's lived off grid longer than most people have ever known off grid living existed. And I've been to your place and we were sitting there talking about it. And I remember the part of the story where you were like sleeping in the back of your car in Florida and you were not going to go home until this journey was done. So, like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, when you had that diagnosis came in and you were just like, no, and you were raising two kids and you had a lot going on and you made a decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, for me, being in the health profession, now for over 20 years, at that time it was probably 14, 15 years, and you diagnose. First of all, I found the lump myself, I didn't fret or anything like that because I had a, doctor's appointment scheduled anyway within a month or so. So I was thinking after the diagnosis, I saw three doctors, the gynecologist, the normal medical physician, my, yeah, general doctor, and then a surgeon, because my GP said, well, at least talk to the surgeon. So all three of them said, you've got to get it out or you're not going to make it, so, and again, being in the health profession myself, right? I was thinking, why me? I should know it all, right? Why would I get freaking cancer? That did not make sense. However, I knew 6 months prior, or within 6 months prior of this tumor, all of a sudden, from one to the other day, just popping up, I had 5 major shocks and traumas in my life, and they were major that my body obviously couldn't handle it. So again, having been in the health industry for such a long time, I dabbled with raw food, I dabbled with cleansing, with everything. And so in order to just, and of course, you're, when you hear those words from the three doctors, you're not going to make it unless you get it out. I'm thinking, okay, well, it's just breast cancer. So many women have breast cancer and they have surgery, and it's just a quick surgery and out it is, kind of, right? But I know deep down, and also, of course, from my education as a doctor of medical health, the cancer is just a symptom. So if I knew, if I don't do the inner work, that it'll come back, and I didn't want to go just through surgery for it to come back, because it's a superficial fix, right? So you have to go deep inside of yourself to clear this whole thing up, right? And as a courtesy, I be honest, as a courtesy to my doctor, I said, okay, I'll talk to your friend who is a surgeon, because she begged me, you please talk to her and blah, blah, blah. So I talked to the surgeon, and of course, I'm asking all kinds of questions. And because at that time I was debating, well, maybe I should just go for that. It's easier and so on, right? But is it? That's the other thing. And then I asked her, so, okay, what do you do after? And so on. And she said, well, we would just put the iodine in to see if it passed on to the lymph nodes. And, then we'll take the lymph nodes out. And in my head, in my heart and soul and head and my whole being, I said, nope, you're not going to touch me. I didn't tell her that. I just thanked her. I went back to my GP and told her that, what my decision was. And she says, oh, you can just tell her not to take your lymph nodes out. I said, no, you know how it is. If I sign on this dotted line, the doctor does what they seem is necessary. So from there on, it was no, absolutely no. Now, I changed my life on a dietary perspective, 100%. I went off any sweets, off any fruit. I totally was raw for many years, actually. And so I only ate raw food, only vegetables, some proteins, lots of fats. And I was in the best shape of my life. I lost all kinds of excess pounds I had, and I was exercising. I was outdoors. I'm outdoors anyway. I have a big property, but still, I was very conscious of the physical component. But I also knew it's not just going to get rid of that by just changing the diet, basically, like that. I needed to heal those events that happened within the last half a year prior. And there was the Truth About Cancer conference live, basically, in Orlando. I've seen it online before. Actually, I shared it with your dad and so on. But I thought, okay, so this is something I'm going to go to. So my diagnosis was mid-July. The conference was late September. I signed up for the conference and I said, okay, well, and I need my own emotional healing. So like you mentioned, I had 2 young boys at that time. Well, they were young teenagers, 12 and 14, and I told them, I said, I've got to leave and I don't know when I'm coming back, because I need to heal myself, because if I don't heal myself, you may not have your mom again. So there was just me first. Sure, I was sad, but it was not a wavering. It was just like a knowing I need to do this, and with that component, it is so much easier when we truly tap into our intuition, what is truly really right for us. Then we can make the proper choices and move forward with them, right? So just like you said, I was standing there, I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to the conference, that's my first stop, but I'm not a millionaire or anything. So since I had an open-ended plan, I said, I can't really stay in hotels, right? So how am I going to do that? So I stealth camped in my journey in the back. I was sleeping at beaches. I was sleeping wherever, in parking lots and hospital parking lots. I actually, the police found me, got a ticket with illegal camping. And so it was kind of interesting, this whole journey. But while I was gone, it was just me. The truth about cancer was awesome. It gave you and me and everybody there a lot of insights from obviously other people who have gone through the journey, but still the journey is ours, right? So I had to make the journey mine. And I had to go through a lot of emotional healing with all the things that happened that half year before. So I remember one pivotal moment was for me where, I was sitting in Daytona Beach in at one of the beaches. And I was doing my bliss session that I've started after as well to do with patients and so on, to really process this grieving. I always say, and you may have heard it, but for sure all my patients have heard it, you've got to get into the bee's nest and see if it still stings, and if it still stings, you're not done with things. You're still triggered, right? So as I'm sitting on the beach there, I almost had an out of body experience. I was sitting there, people were around. It wasn't busy, but people were around. And, it was like 2, 3 hours. I did not move. I was crying. I was letting my emotions go through. And I have a certain process that I work myself through that and that I'm doing with patients as well to get into these resolution phases. So, and I call it bliss because after uh, you're just in a blissful state. Everything is vibrating. Everything there's no worry. There's no fear. There's no negative emotion anymore. Everything is love. You could just die there. You wouldn't care. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And that's the other thing as well. Some people, when they have diseases, or even cancer, they try to keep everything very, very positive. And to me, that's a fake. As much as I'm all about high vibration and positivity, but you know what? You need to freaking hate your cancer. You need to hate the issue that brought on this cancer, that some people call it karmic connections or whatever. You have to have this capability of polarity. It's a functional polarity and duality that eventually gets you through that. So long story short, I actually had planned to, while going through Florida, it was actually the year of the hurricane, so I didn't make it to Key West because it was all destroyed. But my idea was I'm going to travel to California, and heal and have a look at the states, kind of, and I would just go wherever I'm pulled. But then, unfortunately, this at Ponds Inland, I got busted by the police, and so I was red flagged. And they say if we ever find you again, you're going to spend a night in jail. So that took a little different. It was kind of interesting. And so many opportunities. I met so many people. I met a biker who invited me to stay with him for Daytona Bike Week, Biketoberfest. and he had an extra Harley. It was like I was in this big room with all veils, you know, and for a split second, something was like the silver platter came out and gave me an opportunity. And if I wouldn't grab it, it would go back, kind of, right? So I grabbed every opportunity. It was an amazing trip. It was an amazing healing trip. However, after I came back and after this all emotional healing, my cancer tripled in size. Okay, so I have studied German
Wow.
New Medicine, and German New Medicine says there are two phases to cancer or to a tumor. There's a resolution phase and there is a progression phase. And even though I've studied it, and I knew this was a resolution phase, it's kind of, you know what? My cancer is tripled in size. So do I really want to live with that or not? And then part of one of the biggest shocks and traumas was my mom and my parents, that I told them I'll never visit them again. And so I reconciled with my mom. And then I even invited her to go with me to Egypt for her 80th birthday. And that was the best ever. So to see her totally away from my dad, we had created a totally different bond we never had before, ever. We were never close, let's put it that way. And then I came back from Egypt, and I have a good friend of mine, and he says, "So it's still in you?" I said, "Yeah." "So what are you going to do about it?" I said, "Well, I have done a lot over the last 9 months. I've changed my diet. I've been so clean. I've done enema, cleansing, I was clean inside out, right? And I've cleared all my relationships up." He says, "But it's still in you." And then he left. And I thought, yeah, you know what? He has a point. And that's when I really, because until that time you're thinking, okay, can I live with a cancer? I know it's not really going to kill me, but you're wavering, kind of, because you're still finding your way. And I've done so much. I've done the physical component, I've done the emotional healing, I've done the cleansing, I've done everything. And then I thought, no, he is right. It needs to come out. So there was this pivotal moment, the other pivotal moment, basically, where I just said, okay, by the end of the year, this was early February, by the end of the year, it's either you or me, either the cancer won or I'm winning. So I declared war, so I,
Wow.
yeah, I didn't know really where to start. I mean, I've been treating cancer patients, sometimes successful, sometimes not. And we know, cannabis oil works for some, but they don't work for others. So it's a really intuitive thing. And I have a lot of experience and knowledge about what to do about cancer or against cancer and so on. But until that time, I thought I applied it all. I didn't go to the cannabis yet and so on. But I thought, okay, I'm backtracking. So by the end of the year, it's going to be gone. So if it's not gone by September, October, I said, I'm going to do this. If it's not gone by June, I'm going to do this. So I created stages, kind of, right? And I even, because the September, October stuff was something I would have never looked forward to, but I would have needed help. So I asked some girlfriends if they would look after me at that time, so, and they said yes, but they were praying not to because they were scared children. Right? So, but anyway, then I said, okay, what do I start off with? Right. So I came up with 5 things. Well, the first thing was really the war against cancer. Okay. So that was a real legitimate thing. You can't just be lying back and loving life because the cancer is eating you up. You have to declare war if you want to go anywhere. even war within yourself, war against the tumor, war against whatever, how you used to be, whatever. So again, thank God I've had it in me and always had it in me after job losses and so on. Get up and say, okay, enough of this bullshit. I'm going to do this, and listen to my inner intuition. So I did 5 things or 4 other things. And 18 days later, my cancer was gone 90%. So, and then I kept it a little more easy, and within 3, 4 months it was gone. So it was quite amazing.
Oh my goodness. I took some notes from that because it's just like you hit so many important things for disease, but also just for life. And that's one of the things that, like, my respect and just admiration for you is through the roof, because it's that you just said, like, I declared war. And I know, I can't even imagine how like totally disheartening it would be to spend 9 months totally focused on healing for it to triple in size. And the only reason I could even imagine is when I had the cyst rupture and I started doing everything. And next thing I know, it went from 30 some cysts to 86 cysts. And then I was like, I can't even believe it. But the way that you said, like, there are phases, and I knew this was one of the phases, and you declared war, either the cancer wins or I do. And it makes me think, like, how many areas of our life where we are unfulfilled, where we are stuck, like you always say, do we have to declare war on the outcome? And it's not in an aggressive, like violent way. It's really like, there's no other option other than a win or a lose. And that, I think, is so amazing. And I know that you've utilized that in a lot of different areas of your life. And it's interesting that you had that moment where you're like, I should know this. I should know what to do. And still being humble enough to say, like, but it's different because it's me. And I think that is what allows you to serve so many people, because you understand that when it comes to ourself and turning that lens inward, it is a very different experience than when we're just coaching other people to do it. Do you find, Manuela, now that you've had this experience, when you work with people, when they get to that phase where the cancer's tripled in size, or maybe they feel more depressed, or all of those things where it becomes more, or it could be retracing all of these things, like, do you feel like that is a pivotal moment for people that no matter what is being said outside of them, they have to decide?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the main thing is we always have to approach our fears. And in this case, it was death. Right? I mean, cancer is lethal for many, 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 too many people in my eyes, because many could live, right? If they would have known, or if they would have had the guts and the backbone and really, really approached their inner demons, because it's not easy. We all know that. So it's not easy to get into this fear and ignorance. It's so much easier, but you're not going to live your life that way, right? So it's all about, and you said it's not in a violent way, and I agree with you and I disagree with you, because it is not, of course, not in a violent way external, but it is really in a violent way internal. It's almost like an orgasm. You have to address it from a very high potency, and there is a charge that's building. And if you do not have that charge, you're not overcoming that, so that is very, very important, right? So as much as sometimes, I mean, I've done so many, what other people always said, stupid things or gutsy things, or do you grow balls or whatever, right? So many things where I'm just
Right.
saying, okay, enough is enough. I need to do this, even though it scares the hell out of me, right? But there's no other
Mhm.
way, because I want to live truthful. I want to be truthful to myself. I want to be truthful to others, whether they like it or not. That's their issue, right? But the truth will set me free. And that is one thing we all need to understand. And if people, I'm here to help people in any situation, not just in cancer or in other, health things, but if they're stuck in life, in their job or in their business, running their business, to guide them and to mentor them and to coach them, right? Because you're right, it has this, it's this functional polarity between this love, but also between this, force that pushes us forward. And actually, deep down, it is a desire function. It is the love force that pushes us forward. But the stuff that holds us back, it's all this contraction, this fear, this, oh my God, how do people look at me? Or will I die or whatever, right? But so many people are dying without having lived. And that is very important to me, that I
Totally.
live to the fullest, right? And have fun doing whatever I'm doing. I mean, there's time for fun, there's time for suffering, but to recognize when is the time, okay, I'm stuck here now. What do I do about it? Because it's not being at war with the external, it's all our own internal,
Mm.
and
Oh, yes.
find then the compassion and the love that we all too often give to others, but give it to ourselves, and the respect. We need the respect to respect ourselves in order to be reaching our potential in life in any moment, you know? So, yeah, very
I
important.
totally agree with you. And I agree that it's in every aspect of life. Like, how many times do we, one of the, I think the most difficult things sometimes about being a mentor or a coach, and I know you agree, is when we see, it's so easy to see the potential in other people. It's so easy to see the gifts in other people. But like you said, when we have to turn it around on ourselves, it's just like, whoa. But there's this point. And I actually think, like what you said about it, like, I declare war, that's in other areas of our life. Like, even for us right now, like, we just jumped off a ledge and walked away from an income and a business. And it was like, you have to be okay being super uncomfortable, because the comfort is where we get deeper into that hole, right? Like that instant satisfaction, that like forgetting what's actually happening right now, like you said, getting away from the truth. And when we jump off that cliff, whether it's for our health, whether it's for our business, whether it's for love, whether it's for anything, there's a moment in time where you are floating in the air, and then there's a point where you are just like driving through the air, and it is so scary when you jump off that cliff. Yet that is truly where everything in life becomes so incredible. And that's one of the things that I love that we both agree on, is that we have to remove ourselves from the normal environments and the everyday comfort in order to truly understand what is available to us.
Exactly. And you mentioned as well, when you talked about it, what comes up is as well, a lot of people just say, oh, it's all fate, good for you and whatever, right? When I left Germany and came over here, some family members say, oh, good for you, you were lucky. And I was upset. I was, insulted, because you know what? There was nothing luck about it. We all have the same brain. We all have the same bronze. We can reach, everybody who wants to reach it can reach it. There's no such thing as luck. If you're determined, you can go wherever you want to go, but you have to have a clear vision. And just like you say, when you are in this free fall, because you don't know which way is up, you don't know what's coming, and all you have is knowing yourself, trusting yourself and having faith. And that brings chills right through me right now. Having faith and trusting yourself is the one thing that we have to have in order to develop our own intuition. Like I mentioned earlier, we have multiple, whatever, voices in our heads, from upbringing, karmic stuff, and from our own experiences that have shaped us, right? So it's, of course, oh, don't do this, that could hurt, or don't do this, they could laugh at you, or whatever it might be, right? And we have to overcome those. Those are not us. Those are society created situations and scenarios that have imprinted into our being to keep us locked down from reaching our potential. So only when we say, okay, I recognize you right now, you take a hike. That's literally what I do in my own head sometimes. I say, okay, I know you're there, just take a hike, and then what I refer to my conversations with God, right? And sometimes, I get this intuition, and funny enough, I'm making major decisions in a split seconds. Major. The best ever major decisions is a split second. And sometimes I get that intuition and I'm thinking, really, God? Really? Really? You want me to do that? That's crazy. You know that, right? But I said, I'll do it. But you know what? It's whatever, right? So that's what's going on in my mind, right? And it's kind of interesting. I've developed those conversations with God over the last 10, 20 years or something like that. And I be honest, I wasn't really brought up in a spiritual sense at all. But the birth of my first son, made me understand that, you know what, we are not in charge. We are not in charge because he was born, but he almost didn't make it. He was on life support for over 10 days and all that stuff. And when that hit me, and I tried to get pregnant for over 7 years, it never worked. So when that hit me to say, really, I'm pregnant and now you're taking him from me, I was thinking, I'm not in charge of anything, of nothing, nada. So that event changed my life in a spiritual perspective to truly know there's so much beyond us. The more I know, the more I now know, the more I don't know, actually. Where when I was younger, I thought I knew it all. And I was a go getter. I'm still a go getter, but a little more gentler. I don't need to hurt myself or hurt others in order to go and get what I want. So again, attack your fears, give your false ego a hike, and listen to your intuition. And some people need to have help with identifying those things because it's all in such a big ball that they don't really know who is what. And one quick thing I can give on the road to people who might be listening is ask yourself, why are you doing something, or why are you not doing something? Where is it coming from? And if it is based out of love, that's the only answer where you're truly you. If it is based out of I have to, I should, out of fear, out of jealousy, out of commitment, out of whatever, forget about it, give it a hike. So that phrase is worth gold. If you really want to apply it, you will find out your own intuition very, very easily.
I love that so much. And it actually, there's so many nuggets here for all of us to take with us. And even just last night, I had this moment where I was in my head. Just to give a tangible example of this, I was really in my head about something. And usually I'm someone who really wants to talk it out, and I want to talk it out, usually with my partner, because that's what we do. We have very open communication, but I just knew that it was not the time to talk about this with anyone else. This was for me. And that was the intuition. And I sat there in discomfort and I was very upset and crying but I knew it had nothing to do with anyone else. And what I had perceived as being let down by of someone was actually just rooted in my own fear of the possibility of something not happening. And to sit in the discomfort, but like you said, big things in split seconds, and all of that took 10 minutes. But it's understanding that there's deeper layers than what is coming up right away. The same way for you, after 9 months of healing, there was more, there was deeper. Well, that is still true even for small things that agitate us. So I love what you said, because there's a surface level, which is like the little voices. And then as soon as we get through that distraction and we get a little bit deeper, we can recognize, is this from love or is this from fear? And so thank you for that. And it is something that it seems so simple, but it's not easy. And I agree that we are the sum of the people we surround ourselves with. And if you are not having these type of conversations and you crave them, then please reach out to Manuela. Go watch some of her videos. She will make you laugh and cry and think and all the things in the same sentence. And that's what these conversations are for, the living word. It's bringing life back into conversation, because being human is ups and downs. It's not always easy, but we are here for an experience. And just like you said, Manuela, the experience comes in the polarities. You say that even on your website, like the polarities are where we learn. We absolutely require both. And whether you are on an adventure of your own or hearing an adventure about Manuela sleeping in her car and almost going to jail so that she can heal her cancer, like it's a story in the end. We get to, we are writing our own movie, and your movie is so important. And I believe that this episode is going to serve as such a beautiful golden nugget for so many. And please share this with someone that you thought of. Please go to the show notes and connect with Manuela. We'll have all of the information for you to connect to her website, on her social media. And I really believe that when someone resonates with you, they have been brought into your path for a reason you may not know yet. And the best way for us to get to where we're going is to surround ourselves with people that have done what we want to do. And so, Manuela, thank you for being one of those people in my life. Thank you for sharing yourself today. And I'm so excited for us to continue these conversations. I love you so much.
You're welcome. Love you too.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Living Word podcast today. My hope is that you have something new or a remembrance that you can apply in your life right now. Isn't that the whole point of us learning and growing? To take new understandings and alchemize them through our own human experience? Please like and leave a comment or review if you enjoyed this episode, and share it with people in your life who would benefit from hearing it also. Make sure you subscribe to the Living Word podcast on your favorite platform and be the first to know about upcoming episodes. Sending so much love and gratitude to be on this journey together. See you soon.